If you're a religious parent, it's very tempting to push faith on your kids as early as possible. Because you mean well. You think it's good for them. In practice, that might mean you get them baptized shortly after they're born. You get them in Sunday school from an early age so they learn the basics of your religion, and so they can learn morality and ethics. You might get them to pray before going to bed. But consider this. That is a bad idea. You don't need to do any of it. And you might actually be better off not doing it, especially if you're not all that religious to begin with. What if you just didn't tell your kids about God? Not yet. What if you waited until they were a little older to introduce them to the concept? Here's why you should seriously consider that. Morality doesn't require God. Do you think your kids won't learn to be kind, honest, decent people unless they're guilt-tripped into doing it? Because morality isn't when you do the right thing because you believe God is watching over your shoulders. It's when you do the right thing even when nobody's watching. Our world is better off when people are helping others without the need for a reward, or when they're giving to those who are less fortunate without expecting anything in return, or when they're telling the truth even though they don't have to. You don't need religion for that. Even kids understand that. Seriously, just teach them the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. That's a good substitute for all things religious, and God has no part in it. Better yet, teach them the platinum rule. Treat others the way they want to be treated. Respect them. The online version of that, by the way, is only say things in a comment thread that you would say face to face, and if we all knew your real name. Got it, YouTube? And if that's too much work, how's this? Be nice. That's it. That's the tweet. Kids get that too. That's all of morality. They're more likely to be nice if they understand why it makes sense, instead of doing it because you tell them it's one of God's special rules. You don't need religion to teach morality. Religion invites shame. So much of religion, especially Christianity, Catholicism, involves telling people that without God, they're worthless. They are sinners. They're unsaved, they're lost, they have a God-shaped hole in their heart. Basically, there is something wrong with them. That's never been true. But what a horrible thing to tell your children, for them to believe they're wretches in need of supernatural intervention. It's even worse to tell them Jesus was murdered because of something they did without even realizing it. He died for your sins. Don't do that to them. Trust me, they will get older and they are going to feel shame about everything. You don't need to pile on from birth. Let kids be curious. A kid should never grow up thinking God did it is an acceptable answer for anything. I'm sure all of us were annoyed when our parents responded to our questions with, "Because I said so." It wasn't an answer. It was a way to end the conversation. That's the same thing as God did it, or God will take care of it. It's a cop-out. Your kids are born curious. As they grow up, unfortunately, a lot of them lose that spirit, partly because we discourage them from asking so many questions. Let's give them more opportunities to discover things for themselves. As annoying as it might be, your kids asking why is really a wonderful thing because it means they want to know stuff. Why is the sky blue? Why do I look like mommy and daddy? Why do I have a belly button? Those are good questions. And if you don't know the best way to respond, go search for the answers with them. Teach them how to learn on their own. Teach them how to think, not what to think. Religion always seems to have an answer for everything, and so many of those answers are just made up. Don't let religion destroy your child's curiosity. Your kids will trust you more. Kids will believe anything you tell them, at least at first. If you want to develop a stronger bond with your child, lying doesn't help. Because when they realize you're lying, they'll make a mental note not to take you seriously in the future. Telling them the Bible is true, then, is going to be a problem the moment they find a contradiction, or realize there's no way the world was created in 6 days, or understand people don't rise up from the dead outside of zombie movies. Just because you mean well doesn't mean your kids will come around to your way of thinking. And if your kids learn they can't trust you on the small things, they're never going to come to you for the big things. I know some atheists who honestly feel conflicted about introducing their kids to the idea of Santa Claus for that very reason. I mean, I do it, it's fun for me, but I get where they're coming from. Even a lie for the sake of tradition is a lie. But at least with Santa, the expectation is that the kids will eventually grow out of it. Religion doesn't come with the same guarantee. It builds self-confidence. If your kids face a problem, what do you want them to do? Pray to God for help? Or figure out a way to take care of things themselves? If they're struggling in school, for example, prayer's not going to change that. They need to study more, or talk to friends or a guidance counselor, or find a tutor, or ask the teacher for more help. Whatever the issue, you want kids to be strong and self-reliant. Asking for help is great when they're talking to real people. The problem is that when we teach them to rely on God for anything we need, everything becomes a group project where God just sits on the sidelines but still gets credit for it. They'll learn to challenge authority. Maybe the worst thing about religion is that it teaches kids that obedience is a good thing. And that is tempting as a parent because, trust me, there are so many times I wish my kids would just shut up and listen to me. But if an adult does something that doesn't make sense to them, I want kids to push back. I want them to ask questions. I don't want them to do things just because an authority figure told them to do it. If they think they know better, let them speak up. Just because someone's a pastor doesn't mean he knows everything, or that he's always telling the truth. Same with parents. But no one raises kids to hold up citation needed signs in church. That would not be a bad idea. You can avoid indoctrination. If you're religious and you want your kids to be religious, indoctrinating them is a horrible way to do it because the backlash could be huge. I would say that to atheists, too. The most outspoken atheists I know come from some of the most religious families, and some very famous Christians came out of very non-religious homes. You don't want kids to believe something is right or good just because they're used to it from you. Richard Dawkins has made this point before, but we all accept that it would be absurd for a parent to say, "This is my newborn baby. She's a Republican." Like, what? No, she's a baby. She doesn't have political thoughts. And yet parents do that all the time with religion. This child is getting baptized because he's a Catholic. He's a good Muslim child. That kid doesn't know what's going on. Give him some space to figure it out. Don't saddle him with a label he didn't choose. Kids should learn how to challenge their own preconceptions. And I know we always want our kids to just become miniature versions of ourselves, but in terms of beliefs, if you trust your kids and your beliefs are well grounded, maybe they'll come around and see things your way, and they'll do it because they worked it out for themselves, not because it was forced upon them. But even if they don't, so what? Raise your kids to be decent people, and then let them forge their own path, even if it's not the one you would have chosen. It encourages doubt. Religion offers so many wrong answers to so many good questions. What else is out there? How did we get here? Evolution and cosmology, just to name two subjects, are fascinating, partly because there are so many aspects of those subjects we just don't know. Not yet. And maybe we'll never know. But that's okay. That's honest. You almost never hear a pastor say, God doesn't really have a position on this issue. No, God always has an answer for everything, and it always seems to coincide with whatever the pastor thinks. And even when it makes no sense at all, religious people will just say God is working in mysterious ways. It's okay to say we don't know what's happening. That's life. Uncertainty is part of it. Let's teach our kids not to accept a bad answer just to fill a void. They're not old enough. They'll learn about God eventually. I'm not saying we should shelter them from religion. Of course, they should learn about different beliefs because religion is a driving force in our world. And they need to know how to communicate with friends and classmates who are believers. They're gonna make friends with kids who are religious, and knowing what that entails is important. But just imagine if your kids weren't introduced to religion until they were much older. Teenagers, even. What if one day you said, I want to tell you about how a virgin gave birth to the Lord, who once walked on water, and later got tortured, but then got resurrected. And that's why there's an Easter bunny. Oh, and by the way, some people think eating a wafer means you are literally eating the body of Jesus. Literally. If your kids still take religion seriously after all that, fine. They can be religious. But more often than not, they accept those stories just because they're used to them. Religious belief, like sex education, doesn't make sense until they reach an age where they have at least some clue about what people are talking about. And like sex, they should know how to do it safely. It's unfair to push your beliefs on them when they've never had a chance to think through it, especially when we're talking about smaller religions that demand more from believers. It can cause a lot of damage. They deserve hell. Have you been around babies? They can be evil, annoying, smelly. They kind of deserve hell. So, maybe don't tell them about God and let's see what happens. Look, you may think that answer is cruel, but I swear you will agree with me the next time they're crying at 3 a.m., is all I'm saying.